I want to start today talking about patriotism. We've seen some of the worst aspects of the sort of George W. Bush neocon Republicans exacerbated or blown up under the Trumpian America in which we live. And patriotism is definitely at the top of that list. And if you've been following politics, American politics, for any length of time, you know that Republicans for a long time have tried to co-opt the term patriotism for their own gain. And not only have they sought to define patriotism, they've specifically done it in a way to try to monopolize patriotism in American society, where the Republicans are patriotic and Democrats and socialists and everybody else is not. But this has gotten even worse during the era of Donald Trump. And you might remember back when George W. Bush was president, Republicans tried to weaponize the idea of patriotism to say, if you don't support the troops in Iraq, you're not patriotic. And of course, people like me who opposed sending troops to Iraq, we opposed it because it was misguided as a response to Saudis attacking us on 9/11. It didn't make any sense. And so when we opposed going into Iraq, it was because we support the troops and we want our country to do the right things. We didn't want to send troops into harm's way for a misguided and politically motivated military engagement based on then flimsy and after the fact we knew completely bogus so-called intelligence. But we were called unpatriotic as a result of that. Cut to the Trump era. We are now seeing something very similar, but because Donald Trump's followers, just like on average, Trump's followers seem even less informed and less intelligent than those of George W. Bush, if that can be believed, it's working in an even more insidious way. So remember, patriotism is devotion to one's country, whereas nationalism is more about focusing support on the interests of one's country, even at the exclusion or to the detriment of other countries, right? So patriotism versus nationalism, there's a difference and there's overlap. When we talk about patriotism, we're really talking about devotion and attachment to one's country and an alliance with our fellow citizens. We're not talking, when we say patriotism, of blind loyalty to the president or blind loyalty to the military or the president or the military or our leaders' actions. And that's how the Trumpists are trying to define patriotism for their benefit. If you look at the data on the virus and you come to the only sane and logical conclusion, which is, wow, we have failed miserably on the virus, where most other countries have done better than we have failed. They will say that's unpatriotic. Noticing that is unpatriotic. What we're doing is recognizing we can do better, wanting to do better. There is nothing unpatriotic about that, and don't allow them to frame it that way. They want you to believe that wanting your country to do better and believing it could have done better is unpatriotic. That's laughable, and we can't allow them to do that. That's what they want to convince you of. And when you step back, the way in which patriotism or attacks of lack of patriotism are weaponized by Trumpists fit this description in a number of ways. Look at the wall as an example. When it comes to the wall, they want to build a wall between the U.S. and Mexico. They insist it's patriotic to do so. Why? We are allowed to question that. Why is it patriotic? Most people coming to the United States illegally are not crossing the physical border. They're overstaying visas. The wall can be defeated. It's outrageously expensive. It won't improve relationships with other countries to sort of deal with the immigration issue at its core. So why is it unpatriotic to question the wall? It's not, but they use that assertion to shut down debate. They want you to believe maybe it is unpatriotic to question the wall so that you shut your mouth. It's essentially an ad hominem. They will make the debt. We've talked about this one before. Oh, debt. Oh, it's a terrible. When a Democratic president is in the Oval Office, debt is an issue of patriotism. And then when a president takes over who's a Republican and explodes the debt like Bush did, like Trump has, debt doesn't matter anymore. It's no longer an issue of patriotism. The right loves to say that when we on the left say that's racist, they say you can't talk about that. You should feel bad that you called someone a racist. They make finding racism the problem in order to stifle debate. And they're using the term patriotism in the exact same way. They say, you're being unpatriotic. That's un-American. And they do it to make the conversation about whether you are a patriot rather than evaluating the criticism. Have we done well on coronavirus or haven't we? We look at the numbers, we figure it out. It's unpatriotic. You're not standing by the country because you're not standing by the president. Well, the president failed. There's nothing unpatriotic about that. So here's my warning to you. We need to treat allegations about lack of patriotism the same way we should treat allegations of Trump derangement syndrome. I told you this last week. There's these catchphrases and tools that they have developed to actually shut down debate. And they claim they're about debate. They don't want to suppress speech, they claim, but they use these terms. You're unpatriotic, that's Trump derangement syndrome, to shame and ridicule anybody who wants to make a critique. It's very popular on Twitter now. You make any criticism of Donald Trump, the reactions will be, you have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, orange man bad. Can't you do anything other than orange man bad? This is the idea that you are blinded by hatred of Trump, where you can't logically critique him, and then they just ignore the critique. They don't actually think about what you're saying because you have Trump derangement syndrome. Don't allow them to stifle the debate with these questions. When they say that's unpatriotic, say, what is unpatriotic about it? Well, you're not standing by the president. Patriotism is about what's best for the country and our fellow citizens. It is not about blind loyalty to whoever happens to occupy the Oval Office for 4 or 8 years. And just remember, by the way, there's always hypocrisy. When Obama was president and Trump was starting to dabble more and more in politics, Trump spent years criticizing Obama. And now they want to say criticizing the president, that's unpatriotic. So don't fall for it. Patriotism is wanting what's best for your country and the people in the country. It is not blind loyalty to Trump. It's not blind loyalty to the military or to any president. That's more how cults work. And that's increasingly what the Trump administration and the Trumpian milieu actually represents, not liberal democracies. So don't fall for it. Guys, it's getting really, really bad. April and May were seemingly nothing when it comes to coronavirus compared to what it is we are increasingly facing right now. We are seeing new coronavirus records almost daily. And these are not the types of records you want to be setting. Remember that for the Trump administration, we beat this thing in May. It's over. I mean, we're months past victory. Now, it's true that other countries did almost beat this thing. They are reopening safely. They've crushed their curve, and life is looking more and more normal. And it's true that parts of the U.S. are reopened almost completely, but those parts of the U.S. are seeing some of the worst outbreaks in the world. If Florida or Arizona were countries alone, they would be some of the worst countries in the world to be in from the standpoint of coronavirus. So let's just look at the data. Florida yesterday set the all-time high ever for any single day new cases in any of the 50 U.S. states. Florida had more than 15,000 new cases yesterday. This is way worse. This is thousands more than even New York had at the worst point in its outbreak. It's making global headlines how bad things are in Florida. I was watching Argentinian news this morning, and they said, breaking news, the United States state of Florida set a record we've never seen anywhere. Meanwhile, on Friday in the U.S., again, I've been saying this type of thing for months because it keeps getting worse. The U.S. set the single day record for cases with almost 72,000 cases in one day. There are now a record estimated 1.75 million active cases in the United States, almost 3.5 million cumulative cases. And then the deaths. You know, we were hoping, I was cautiously optimistic that something different would happen, that even though the cases started spiking around June 19, that deaths would not spike 20 days later. But sadly, right on cue, 20 days after the cases spiked, we saw last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, deaths back up to the 750 to 1,000 per day range. And it is believed that those deaths are tied to the cases from around June 20 to 25, early July was way worse in terms of cases. And if indeed we're going to see the same pattern, next week is going to be very, very ugly. So there are about 3 layers of disappointing, it's not really the word, 3 layers of dismay here when it comes to what's going on. First, we know the administration failed. They don't seem to care. Trump is golfing. He's not talking to Fauci. I'll tell you about that later. That's number one. We know it could have gone better because just about every other country did better. The proof is there. There's nothing unique about they'll say, well, these other countries are less free than the United States. No, they're more smart. South Korea ranks higher on the democracy index than the United States. When you hear the only reason South Korea did what they did is because they're not free the way we are. According to the Democracy Index, South Korea is more free than the United States. Second, we are in this situation partially because of the administration. Yeah, that's true. But partially we're in the situation we are because of governors and the people in the states. Now, that's on both sides. What I mean by that is Trump failed. That's the starting point. In some states, governors and people took things seriously. I'm not, some people say I brag about Massachusetts. I'm privileged to live in a wealthy state like Massachusetts. Listen, I just know what's going on here. You see masks everywhere. Schools are closed. Almost all summer camps, other than some very specific, physically distant camps that are possible. Utmost caution here. And in fact, people are getting worried that we're doing too much by letting restaurants do indoor dining. I don't think we should. In other states, people who think masks and vaccines are the problem are sort of joining forces with ignorant governors to let the situation run rampant. So that's horrifying. That's the second piece, which is that as Trump failing aside, you have a dramatically different population in different parts of the country and different governors who have handled this very differently. And you can see it in the case numbers. And then number 3, of course, is that we've done so little, but we're pretending like it was just beyond our control. That's a very disturbing attitude. You just look at other countries. We chose to handle this differently than other countries. Some states did it one way. Some states did it another way. But we're almost saying we're all out of ideas, except we've done almost nothing. And they're looking at reopening Disney World when Florida got 15,000 new cases in a single day. It's truly vile. And all we can do is, one of the tough things for me has been not relinquishing, I never had control, but recognizing that I just lack the control to really affect this at the big picture. All I can do is, okay, I've chosen to live in a state that I predicted would handle things well, generally speaking. And I'm lucky in that sense. And I live in Massachusetts. I can wear my mask. I can be safe. I can tell people what I think makes sense to do. I can't control everything. I can't control the vaccines. And that's a really tough thing right now for people who see how we've gone wrong from day one. Tomorrow night, please join the David Pakman Show, 3rd David Pakman Show chess tournament, 8 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, July 14. I will be playing. Everybody can play. Register for free at davidpakman.com/chess. I will also live stream my participation. And secondly, tomorrow, same day, Tuesday, July 14, we will be doing a big one-day membership special. We're trying to dig out of a 300-member hole that happened on July 4th when a bunch of 2019 members had to cancel because of the virus. So we're going to try to dig out of that tomorrow with a one-day membership special. If you want to be notified about it, very easy. Just go to davidpakman.com and get on my newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter. You'll see where to type in your email address on the right side of the website. Tomorrow, you'll get a beautiful email from me telling you how to take advantage of this discount. In the meantime, tell me how things are looking in your state. I'm on Twitter at @dpakman.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
The David Pakman Show depends on your support, and the easiest way is through membership, which includes the world-famous bonus show, as well as commercial-free audio and video streams of the show just for members. Sign up today at joinpakman.com. Coupon code saves you 40%. Vote soon 18.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new members of the day are Daniel Saiku and Elaine May. Daniel and Elaine, thank you so much for your support. And I also want to thank Jonathan Hoyt. Jonathan has been a member for almost 5 years and is today's longtime sustainer of the day. Thanks, Jonathan. Grab a membership at joinpacman.com. A lot of good stuff happening on the members only bonus show today. One of the most popular perks of being a member. Donald Trump has commuted the sentence of his campaign associate, Roger Stone. Roger Stone, therefore, will not be going to prison where he was scheduled to report soon. Now, there's the general discussion here, and then there's the specific discussion, and I think it makes sense to go in that order. In general, when presidents pardon people or commute their sentences, it's very common that red flags come up about connections between the presidents and the people they are pardoning or whose sentences they're commuting. Were they friends or whatever the case may be? In this case, Trump is commuting the sentence, not just of a friend to the extent that Donald Trump has friendships, but of a friend who worked to get Donald Trump elected. But it isn't just that. It's a friend whose crime was directly related to helping to get Donald Trump elected. But it's even more. The reason that Roger Stone lied in relation to his work getting Donald Trump elected was to protect Trump by hiding wrongdoing that Donald Trump may have been involved in. And in comes Donald Trump and commutes Roger Stone's sentence. This is exactly, as Republican Senator Mitt Romney, of all people, said, it is historic corruption. Roger Stone was a go-between for the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks. Roger Stone was materially involved in the Trump campaign. Roger Stone was convicted by a jury for lying to Congress to protect Donald Trump. So this is corruption. This is an abuse of power. This is a quid pro quo. Remember that phrase that Trump threw around, to stay strong? When it was Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen, Trump's former campaign chairman and former personal lawyer, who were under investigation and under indictment, Donald Trump tweeted about Manafort is staying strong. What that means is he's protecting Donald Trump. Well, Roger Stone stayed strong in that vein. He didn't roll over. He didn't talk about what Trump knew and what Trump did. And that is a quid pro quo. This is arguably a form of bribery. This is arguably an impeachable offense. Now, Trump and others will argue, and it's important to be prepared for this. They will say the president's power to pardon and commute sentences is absolute. Yeah, it's absolute in that a president can pardon whoever they want to pardon or commute the sentence of whoever they want to commute a sentence for. But that doesn't mean that it can't also be an act of corruption or a quid pro quo or a form of bribery. And only 2 Republicans so far have actually called this out for what it is. One is Mitt Romney, as I mentioned. Mitt Romney tweeted, quote, "Unprecedented historic corruption. An American president commutes the sentence of a person convicted by a jury of lying to shield that very president." Now, good for Mitt Romney. But remember, Romney voted to convict Trump on one impeachment count, but he voted to acquit Donald Trump on obstruction. And now Mitt Romney is indignant that Donald Trump is again obstructing. Give me a break. So I get it. Mitt Romney is saying things most Republicans aren't willing to say. But at the same time, you acquitted the guy on obstruction. You remember that, right? Then you have Republican Senator Pat Toomey, who said that the prosecution of Roger Stone was a righteous and appropriate prosecution, quoting what William Barr had to say, and that if there was a problem with this prosecution, it really should be resolved via an appeal, not by Donald Trump jumping in and commuting the sentence of Roger Stone. If Stone was treated unfairly in a real sense, we are well within the scope of time during which an appeal can be made and it could actually be fought through the courts. So the action by Trump here is not surprising. The realization that we've come to is that until Republicans are forced to do what's right or stopped from doing what's wrong, they're going to keep doing it. And I think maybe there's not that much I have to say about Stone specifically. I think it's basically all been said. But what sometimes happens in these situations is that some on the left will start saying, should we stoop to their level? Like, are they so bad that we should resort to cheating or violence or corruption in order to get them out? Do the ends justify the means? And I don't believe so. I don't think that you can pick and choose when to play by the rules. And obviously, it's horrible right now. When we see the degree to which they don't play by the rules, I understand saying we would be justified in not playing by the rules here because we have to get them out. I think that would be the wrong instinct. I believe the path forward should be you've got to remove Trump in November, turn the Senate blue, if not this November, in November of 2022. Maybe this terror of a presidency will affect enough voters that it will sort of open up the country to accept real change if the Democratic Party gets the country back under control. I'm no fan of the Democratic Party as an institution, but, there are people who are going to seek to blame Democrats here. In fact, I've seen some so-called populists over the last week finding as much to criticize of Democrats in the context of the Trump fiasco as they find to criticize about Donald Trump himself. I think they're just wrong. The truth is, Democrats, for all of their faults, and there are many, and I talk about them all the time, Democrats tried to investigate Trump. They saw facts which pointed to impeachment being the right remedy, and they did it. It didn't matter. The Republican Party was never going to go for it. We never believed for a second that Trump was going to be convicted on impeachment, but the Democrats saw the evidence and said impeachment is the correct thing. Democrats were obstructed by the Trump administration and by Republicans at every turn. So there are plenty of critiques of the Democratic Party, and I make them all the time. But right now, deflecting blame onto the Democratic Party is the wrong move right now. It's the Republican Party under Trumpism that either participated in the attacks on the rule of law or they stood aside as Trump did it himself. And they need to be held accountable as well. That's very important. They are also to blame. And you primarily should be blaming the bad actors. So I'm not going to play coy with that the way there are some people doing. New York maybe should look at prosecuting Roger Stone. President can't pardon or commute state sentences and convictions. So on the Stone matter, that would be something to look at. But big picture, we really can't miss the forest for the trees right now. If you're wondering, where is Dr. Anthony Fauci? Where has he been lately? He has not been talking to Donald Trump. That we know. Dr. Fauci has been less and less frequently seen publicly, but we've now learned that Dr. Fauci has not briefed Donald Trump on coronavirus in 2 months, has been dissuaded from doing too many public interviews by the Trump administration. And if you're surprised by this, you've just not been paying attention. Months ago, the Trump administration stopped the coronavirus press briefings, especially after the entire look at injecting bleach and alcohol fiasco that Donald Trump was involved in. And for all intents and purposes, they've decided, this is a political decision, not a medical one. They've decided the pandemic is over. We're reopening now. If there are embers, we will put them out. We've done the best testing and the most testing, and we've got therapeutics and vaccines are going well and all of this stuff. Fauci signals, I don't know that things are going that well. He says, I'm speaking to Trump less and less frequently. I'm briefing Trump less and less frequently. Trump takes on the language of victory, and we just see Dr. Anthony Fauci almost completely disappeared. In the last 10 days, Dr. Fauci starts being really clear. We're not doing well. We're headed towards 100,000 cases per day. We had 71,000 cases per day a few days ago. We're not handling this correctly. If you look at other countries and you look at us, it's clear that things aren't going well. So what is the outcome? The outcome of Fauci telling the truth is that the Trump administration and the White House try to stop Fauci's TV appearances. This is the stop testing to stop cases mentality. We want to have a lower case number? Just stop testing as much and our cases will go down. Don't like what Anthony Fauci is saying? Just don't let him say it. It won't change whether we're headed to 100,000 cases a day, but at least you won't hear it from Fauci. It's like saying, if we didn't do any pregnancy tests, we wouldn't have any unintended pregnancies because we just wouldn't have the tests. And of course, the reality is Trump failed. The administration failed. The world has stopped laughing at us. Now they're crying. They are horrified by what they are seeing here. And it's like we look around the world. Do we understand, by we, I mean, does our government understand why South Korea still doesn't have 300 total deaths and we're having 700 to 1,000 a day? It's because they took this seriously. It's because they developed a test and rolled it out quickly. They did contact tracing. They isolated people with symptoms. Everybody wears a mask. Why does Japan have under 1,000 deaths total, despite having a population of 125 million people and being geographically close to the virus's origin in China? It's because they took it seriously and everybody's wearing masks. And it's not just the public-facing dismissals of Fauci that are concerning. Again, he hasn't briefed Trump in 2 months, and he hasn't even spoken to Trump since early June. The White House publicly has turned on Fauci. They've put out statements lately saying, we're concerned because Fauci has gotten a bunch of things wrong. They even took the time to put together a list of things Fauci has been wrong about, things from early in the pandemic, like when Dr. Fauci said, there probably isn't much asymptomatic spread. And of course, this is a fallacy. This is a novel coronavirus. Everybody got things wrong. The people who said no one would die got things wrong. Trump saying we have 15 cases, which will go to 0, that was wrong. The difference is Fauci corrects himself as science does, since it has a built-in error correcting mechanism. Trump never apologizes. Trump never corrects himself. He never admits that he was wrong. That's the danger. And none of this is surprising. I mean, at this point, there are almost as many conspiracy theories floating around about Dr. Fauci as there are about Bill Gates. And it's not a big shocker that all of a sudden Trump is no longer listening to Dr. Fauci. The only shocker is Fauci hasn't been fired. Now, we could, if we wanted to criticize Dr. Fauci, we could say he was too soft on Trump early. He shouldn't have sugarcoated the job the administration was doing early. But I get the logic. If Fauci just straight up calls out Trump early and sounds the alarm, says, red alert, this guy's incompetent, he's failing, he probably gets fired right away. And there's a calculus to be made. Does a sort of restricted Fauci, but in a position of power, give us a better outcome than Fauci being fired and replaced with some total Trump sycophant? I don't know the answer. I get it. Fauci likely made the call that he thought was the best in the net. It's not easy. But one argument would be Fauci has effectively been fired anyway, in the sense that he's been sidelined. He doesn't talk to Trump, and he's dissuaded from doing interviews. I'm not pretending to know the answer. One last thought. I tweeted recently, we all know that eventually, when it's over, they'll try to blame Fauci and not Trump in some of the sickest revisionist history you can imagine. I tweeted that early this weekend. The reality is it's already happening. It's already happening. And when they say the winners get to write history. Who are the winners here if people keep dying and dying and dying? I don't know. And we can't allow them to revise history in that way. We'll continue covering this on our Instagram page. Follow The David Pakman Show on Instagram at David Pakman Show. And follow me while you're there. I ran into an entitled guy yesterday in Boston, and I called him out, and I filmed it, and it's on my Instagram page, okay? I'm half kidding, but I'm serious as well. David.Pakman on Instagram.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
The David Pakman Show depends on the support of our viewers and listeners, and one way to keep us going is through Patreon, where you can pledge as little as $1 per month or as much as you want at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Great perks and benefits as well. Read about them.
Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
I think many of you are going to enjoy this one, even if it is horrifying. So a few weeks ago, Sean Hannity hosted Donald Trump in a big town hall. They made a big deal out of it. People in the crowd were allowed to ask questions. It was set up as a complete softball just to make Donald Trump look good. And he looked terrible. The questions were super simple questions. We covered this, and it was notable because even easy questions Trump failed on. He was asked questions like, what were your biggest accomplishments in your first term? What is on your priority list for your second term? And Trump failed on every single one of these softball questions. Now, just as a reminder, here is Trump asked, what are your top second term priorities? He couldn't name anything. This was a couple weeks ago.
if you hear in 131 days from now, at some point in the night or early morning, we can now project Donald J. Trump has been reelected the 45th president of the United States. Let's talk. What's at stake in this election as you compare and contrast? And what are your top priority items for a second term?
Well, one of the things that will be really great, you know, the word experience is still good. I always say talent is more important than experience. I've always said that. But the word experience is a very important word. It's in a very important meaning. I never did this before. I never slept over in Washington. I was in Washington, I think, 17 times. All of a sudden, I'm president of the United States. You know the story. I'm riding down Pennsylvania Avenue with our First Lady, and I say, this is great. But I didn't know very many people in Washington. It wasn't my thing. I was from Manhattan, from New York. Now I know everybody. And I have great people in the administration. You make some mistakes, like, you know, an idiot like Bolton, all he wanted to do is drop bombs on everybody. You don't have to drop bombs on everybody. You don't have to kill people.
If John Bolton, in fact, released classified material, should he be prosecuted?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, he did release classified.
Well, Trump was given another chance in another softball Sean Hannity interview a few days ago, and he was asked the same question, and he had weeks to prepare a better answer, and he still failed. Trump was told by Hannity during the interview, you know, a lot of people didn't like your answer last time. What are your second term priorities? And Trump goes on for 2 minutes and says almost nothing again. He got the test again. He already had the test questions. He answered one way. He gets the same test again, and he fails. Take a look.
What is your second term agenda?
Well, first of all, I didn't know I was criticized for that answer because it's a simple question. First of all, we're going to defeat the invisible enemy, and we're well on our way. And as again, I told you, the mortality rate is tenfold down. We're going to rebuild the economy. We're going to bring back jobs from all of these foreign lands that have stolen our jobs on horrible trade deals. We're going to continue to make great trade deals. We're going to finish rebuilding our wall. We're going to have that. It's going to be almost complete by the end of this year. Shortly thereafter, it's finished. It's made a tremendous difference. You see, we're doing record numbers on the border. Very few people are able to get through. We're rebuilding with our military. We've rebuilt the military, $2.5 trillion. We're fixing up the VA for our vets. What the job we've done there, between choice and accountability, we have choice where they can go out and get a doctor. If they're sick, they don't have to wait for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 weeks. So we're doing great with the vets, and the vets are loving Trump. We're protecting our Second Amendment, so important. We need more judges and more justices. You see that now with the Supreme Court more than ever. And the next president, I've had 2, and the next president's going to be able to pick 2 or 3 or 1 or whatever, but a lot of justices. And that means everything, whether it's for life or other things. I mean, it means so much. But protecting the Second Amendment, getting more judges, all of the things that we've done, nobody has done what this administration has done in the first 3.5 years. Nobody's even come close. When you look at everything that we're doing, now what we're doing is working on lowering drug prices and knocking out special interests because it's not easy. We're fighting for choice. We did it for the veterans. Now we're doing it for school, too. We want choice in school so a parent can take their child to a school of their choice. And that's happening very good, very, very well. And we have many things that we're doing and many things that we've already completed. And you can't do more than what we've done. I think we've set records on we actually set a record on judges. We're going to be, by the time of the end of this year, we'll be up to almost 300.
So go through the list of what Trump said. He says, my priority is to defeat coronavirus. We've had one of the worst responses in the world. And when it's defeated, ultimately, it'll have nothing to do with Donald Trump. It'll be because of medical science. He says he's going to rebuild the economy. It's vague and meaningless. That's a vague and meaningless promise. He says he's going to bring jobs back from places that stole them. I thought he already dealt with fixing trade with his tariffs and USMCA. He's saying, oh, so he hasn't actually done that? Says he's going to build the wall and that it'll be almost complete within the year. That's a lie. And remember, he promised to build the full U.S.-Mexico border wall during the first term. Obviously, it's not going to happen. Obviously, it wouldn't happen during a second term. He again brings up we're going to rebuild the military. The military is huge. The military is fine. The military was fine under Barack Obama. There's no problem with the military. He again says he's going to keep fixing the VA for veterans, like with Veterans Choice. That was an Obama provision. That's an Obama program from 2014, which Trump is taking credit for. But he said that he did that in the first term. Isn't it? Aren't we done doing that? So that's incoherent. Says he's going to protect guns. He mentions that twice. He's done nothing as far as that goes. Says he's going to lower drug prices and kick out the special interests. That sounds great. The problem is he promised that for term one and did the opposite. He says school choice. That's terrible, and it's code for take funding away from public education. And then again, he mentions judges 3 times. Now, that's a reason to remove Trump and to take control of the Senate back from Republicans. But getting judges confirmed, the Senate does that. It's Mitch McConnell who did that. No matter which Republican president you had, as vacancies come up, they nominate people. It's up to the Senate to go ahead and confirm them. So if your second term agenda is the same vague stuff as what you did in the first term or claimed you were going to do, but failed, why do you deserve a second term? It's another one of these vapid word salads. And I actually, listen, I worry. I know that part of the problem is that a lot of voters hear that 2-minute clip and they think Trump outlined an agenda. Like, this is an educational problem. An agenda would be Trump saying, or, a candidate saying, I have detailed proposals on my website, but to sum up, some of my main priorities for the second term are, in the next 4 years, I want to establish a public health care option and drop the Medicare age to 55. I will be establishing 3 new tax brackets at 42, 45, and 48%. The money which comes from that will be used to do green infrastructure spending, the details of which I specifically outline on my website in a proposal, but it includes retrofitting all government buildings to certain standards. It includes increasing the number, the percentage of energy that we use to be generated from these 3 renewable sources, whatever, right? Will put us back in Paris climate and the WHO. That's something that sounds like an agenda. What Trump said is not anything. And one of the real problems is, I don't want to say people are stupid, but there's a lot of stupid people. And when I did a segment just saying we've got to realize a lot of people are stupid, many people don't realize that Trump didn't even outline an agenda like that. The problem is a lot of folks are evaluating what Trump said to say, do I like this agenda or don't I like it? He didn't outline an agenda, and a lot of Trump's followers don't realize that. It's an educational issue at its core. One of the things that you maybe don't want to say if you're trying to convince other people about how cognitively stable you are is to make a completely outlandish claim like, doctors who gave me a cognitive test were shocked at how well I did on it. That's essentially exactly what Donald Trump said to Sean Hannity on Fox News the other night during the same interview in which he failed to answer the same questions from a few weeks ago a second time. So let's look at the clip and then discuss it.
He didn't mean that because he hasn't taken any cognitive tests because he couldn't pass one. I actually took one when I very recently when I was, the radical left was saying, is he all there? Is he all there? And I proved I was all there because I aced it. I aced the test. And he should take the same exact test, a very standard test. I took it at Walter Reed Medical Center in front of doctors, and they were very surprised. They said, that's an unbelievable thing. Rarely does anybody do what you just did. But he should take that same test. But no, he has been totally taken over.
Is the constant bragging about really odd things wearing anybody else down? And there's a lot to break down here. But as usual, aside from Trump lying all the time, when Trump goes hyperbolic, you can be extra sure that he's lying. Doctors were surprised. Rarely does anybody do what I did on a cognitive test. What? And the whole context of this is that the right is trying to frame Joe Biden as having dementia. We on the left have had concerns about Trump's cognitive state for years, and we don't know whether it's related to cognitive decline in the form of early stage Alzheimer's or dementia, side effect of some prescription medication, drug use. There's a lot of many different ideas going on. And there's many examples that point to this, the verbal glitches that coincide with the shoulder spasms, Trump not recognizing Rudy Giuliani when Giuliani was right in front of him, Trump talking about the oranges of an investigation, Trump getting off of Air Force One in front of his car and wandering off and having to be brought back by a Secret Service agent, Trump having to be helped down the ramp after his West Point speech, like dozens and dozens of these. And what they're doing is trying to turn it back on Biden, saying Biden sounds lost. He doesn't know where he is. He's hiding from the campaign trail in his basement because of cognitive decline. Biden recently said, I'm fine and I've been tested. They reacted by saying, why would Biden be tested for cognition? And yet now Trump is saying, I've been tested and I did incredibly well on my cognitive test. He even was given a lollipop on the way out and was able to get a second scoop of ice cream that night. What test is he referring to, first of all? We don't know. If Trump is referring to the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, as far as we know, he got that test a couple of years ago. This is a simple test, 30-point test that takes 10 minutes. It's really only good for identifying very serious issues with basic memory, recall, and executive function, and just being oriented in time and place. So the 30 points come from, for example, the clock drawing task. You get 3 points. I would say to you, draw a clock and show me what the hands look like when it's 6:15. That you get 3 points for that. Copy, not even draw from memory, copy a three-dimensional cube. That's a point. I would ask you, where are we right now and what's today's date? That's 20% of the score. You have to identify 3 animals, okay? So if that's the test Trump is referring to, he took it a long time ago, and it doesn't really tell us very much. Claiming to have aced it is like saying, you know, I aced a colonoscopy, right? Like these are screening tools for serious cognitive decline, and it wouldn't rule out any of what's being explored with Donald Trump. Now, to go back to, I took it recently at Walter Reed. That's actually a part of this that's not being discussed. As far as we've been informed, Trump hasn't gone to Walter Reed for medical evaluation. He was there recently, I think, visiting troops, but he hasn't been to Walter Reed for medical care since that day last year when he was weirdly rushed there and Walter Reed said, we didn't know he was coming. And what we were told was, oh, he had a few hours free and we decided to go and get him a jump on his 2020 physical. It wasn't believable then, but as far as we know, that's the last time Trump was there. And as far as we know, he didn't get the Montreal Cognitive Assessment that day. It was actually back in 2018 or even 2017. So none of it makes sense. It's all very concerning. And again, doctors have never seen anything like my results on a cognitive assessment. It's the hyperbole that immediately signals that Donald Trump is lying. Let me know what you think is behind all of this. And remember that you can get the David Pakman Show audio podcast for free. This is available to everybody every day on whichever is your favorite podcasting platform. If you use the iPhone podcasts app, beautiful. If you're on your desktop computer and you like Spotify, perfect. It's available everywhere. Make sure you're subscribed for free to the daily podcast to get the full show every day, right around 3 p.m. Eastern.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Whether you're looking for David Pakman Show coffee for your Chemex or French press or a David Pakman Show t-shirt, it's all available on our website, shipping to anywhere in the world at davidpakman.com/gear. Don't miss the bumper stickers too. davidpakman.com/gear.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So Donald Trump is again defending golfing this weekend, even as multiple states are hitting new single-day highs in terms of new coronavirus cases. And he's defending golfing with a really strange rant about how it's his exercise. And anyway, Obama played more golf, which isn't true. And he's getting work done on the golf course. And he's rushing through the holes anyway, so that nobody should really be mad. It's bizarre. But before we get to it, understand the context. The context is Trump has spent, by one count, 277 days on the golf course during his presidency. That's 21.8% of his presidency. And of the 277 days that he golfed, on all but 8, meaning 269, he went to courses he owns, which is yet another way in which he has handsomely profited from the presidency, funneling taxpayer money, your money, my money, into his courses by requiring a full mobilization of government and Secret Service to resorts and golf courses that he owns. So that's one context. The other context is also that Donald Trump claimed during Barack Obama's presidency that Obama golfed too much and that he wouldn't have any time for golfing. Remember some of this stuff?
Because I'm going to be working for you. I'm not going to have time to go play golf.
I don't have time for that. I love golf. I think it's one of the greats, but I don't have time. And I love golf. But if I were in the White House, I just want to stay in the White House and work my ass off, make great deals, right? Who's going to leave?
And then even more specifically, because there's a tweet for everything, Trump tweeted in October of 2014 as the Ebola, I can't call it a pandemic, as the Ebola situation was going on, which led to 2 deaths in the United States. Trump tweeted, quote, "Can you believe that with all of the problems and difficulties facing the U.S., President Obama spent the day playing golf? Worse than Carter." So, of course, Trump golfs all the time, more than Obama, when not 2, but 137,000 Americans have died from coronavirus. And he tweets this bizarre defense of his golfing. Take a look at this, saying, quote, "I know many in business and politics that work out endlessly, in some cases to a point of exhaustion. It is their number one passion in life, but nobody complains. My exercise is playing, almost never during the week, a quick round of golf. Obama played more and much longer rounds, no problem. When I play, fake news CNN and others park themselves anywhere they can to get a picture, then scream, 'President Trump is playing golf.' Actually, I play very fast, get a lot of work done on the golf course, and also get a tiny bit of exercise. Not bad." So does this require analysis? None of it makes sense. He first weirdly starts by saying some people work out too much and they end up tired. I'm not going to do that. Now, I don't think anybody mistakenly thought Trump was going to work out so much that he'd be overtired from it. I think we knew that. But he says golfing is actually his exercise. Now, of course, he drives a golf cart around, so the exercise part is actually pretty limited. Walking 9 holes with your clubs, walking 18 holes with your clubs, it's really very good exercise. Trump doesn't do that. But then he adds in, I'm not playing during the week, only on weekends. But in any case, Obama golfed more than I did, which is untrue. But in any case, he's playing really fast, so he's not spending that much time on the golf course, and he's getting a lot of work on the golf course. So this is about 4 or 5 different arguments, some of which conflict with each other. But most importantly, he told us he wasn't going to have time for golf, and these are not normal times. We have a global pandemic, which he has handled worse than almost anybody, than any other world leaders. And he's not only spending time golfing, he's spending time tweeting about golfing. Now, the counter argument is one I've made before, which is Trump fails at the things he works on. So don't we want, like, if he golfed all the time, maybe coronavirus handling would be left to people who are competent. But we know that's not how it actually works. When he's gone, it's that lunatic Peter Navarro and, you know, whoever else. It's not Dr. Fauci runs the show when Trump is golfing. And putting aside the human toll of coronavirus for a moment, that's the most important thing. From a political standpoint, many presidents would have jumped at a pandemic as a way to secure their reelection. I've said this before. If Donald Trump had properly handled coronavirus, if Trump said at the beginning, we are going to do the best on this, I am going to get reelected for how well I'm going to handle this, Trump could have an almost guaranteed reelection. One of the areas on which Biden is crushing Trump the most is perceptions of handling of coronavirus. If Trump had handled it well, Biden would not be leading the way that he's leading right now. Trump would need no October surprise if he simply managed this properly. That's mind-blowing to think about because, as usual, Trump's problems are mostly self-inflicted. The virus is not self-inflicted, but look at New Zealand, right? You have a historically popular leader there because of how she dealt with the virus. She didn't cause the virus, but she handled it. Donald Trump hasn't, and it's yet another one of these partially self-inflicted disasters for Donald Trump. Hey, here's just wacky video. Wisconsin Republican State Senator Glenn Grothman is not big on masks, and he introduced Donald Trump at the Wisconsin State Republican Convention on Saturday. Masks were, of course, optional, only a few masks in the crowd of hundreds of people. Glenn showed up after tweeting pictures of himself out and about earlier in the day, not wearing a mask, of course. He shows up and he tries to introduce Donald Trump, and he immediately goes into an uncontrollable coughing fit, the cough racking his entire body the way coronavirus is known to do. I believe at one point you actually hear someone shout from the crowd, "Are you okay?" You have to see it to believe it. He actually has to start loosening his tie because of the degree to which he's coughing violently.
It's time to talk about Donald John Trump.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Guys, this is how coronavirus spreads. I'm not saying he has coronavirus, but it spreads when anti-mask people are around other people all day and then they're coughing in public. I'm not saying that cough, I don't know how close people were sitting. Maybe that cough doesn't give it to anybody, but Wisconsin is increasingly in trouble. If you look at their case numbers, cases are spiking, hitting their highest 7-day moving average today with 4 days in a row of record high cases. Now the event organizers are saying, or they said earlier, if you have symptoms, you shouldn't go. The event organizers said, we will make available face masks for people who want them. Almost nobody wore a mask. In comes this guy, and he's coughing uncontrollably. You really can't fix stupid. And this is why we aren't making progress. And I know people, I already said it, people are going to write and say, David, this guy probably doesn't have coronavirus. Layer one is even having this event. You just shouldn't have this event. There's no reason to have this event right now. Layer two, if you have the event, require the masks. Say that the masks are required. I guess that's considered taking away people's freedoms on the Republican side. And then layer three is this specific guy coughing uncontrollably. He's an invited speaker, not wearing a mask, and he's setting the model that it's okay to be going around in public coughing with no mask. It's stunning, stunning idiocy, the likes of which we hopefully will never see again in leadership in this country. Trump finally wore a mask over the weekend, and I hope to talk about that tomorrow. But, the Trump people are now, they're all over the place on Trump wearing the mask. The people who think masks aren't necessary don't know how to react because Trump now is wearing one. Is Trump stupid to wear it? Then there's the people who think that the masks are something the left is bullying people into. If they see Trump wearing it, by definition, Trump must not really be that alpha because he was bullied by the left into wearing a mask. If Trump insists the pandemic is over, why did he just now start wearing a mask? Like, his followers are completely flummoxed by Trump wearing the mask, but this is all part of the big picture. It's setting a model for what it is that people should and shouldn't be doing. And Glenn Grothman here, hacking uncontrollably, not good whatsoever. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here's a voicemail with a question about the future, which I think is not a question we should really think about too much. You'll know what I mean when you hear it.
Hi, David. You probably won't listen to this, but
Here I
was
am.
just wondering what you think the chances are of Trump being put behind bars after if he loses this election. I was just curious on your thoughts if he will face criminal charges for everything that he's done to this country.
Right.
So just let me know.
Yeah, I do not believe that Donald Trump is going to spend any time behind bars, and I think we should stop thinking about it. From the beginning, if something happens, okay, it is not common that former American presidents go to prison. I understand that Donald Trump is a new animal and he has done things no president has done. But when the Mueller investigation started, I was reminding people this is not going to remove Trump. The soonest opportunity will be November 3rd, 2020. When impeachment started, I said, this is correct, but it is not going to remove Trump. The quickest way to remove him is going to be November 3rd, 2020. And I don't believe that there is prison time waiting for Donald Trump on the tail end of this presidency. And I don't believe that we should be waiting for it. We have one opportunity to remove Trump, and the consequence he will face is losing re-election and having his ego very, very triggered. And that is voting on November 3rd of 2020. So I understand the instinct. I get it all. I really do. But let's focus on getting the vote out rather than talking about might Trump end up in prison. Tomorrow night, Tuesday, July 14, the third ever David Pakman Show chess tournament. The first tournament had 500 players. The second tournament had 732 players. Let's try to beat it tomorrow. You can register for free at davidpakman.com/chess. Let me actually see. As of right now, we have 168 players registered. All levels of chess skill, including no skill, are very much welcome. It's a community building event. I hope you will join me. I also have a really interesting chess-related announcement coming up sometime later this week. And tomorrow, Tuesday, we will have a big one-day membership special early in July because of the virus. About 300 members who signed up in 2019 had to cancel their memberships. They weren't able to renew because of financial circumstances. So we are trying to dig out of a 300-member hole. And in order to do that, tomorrow we're doing a big one-day membership drive. To be notified, simply get on my newsletter at davidpakman.com. You'll see in the upper right of the website, you can type in your email address, and then you will be notified of tomorrow's big membership special. On today's bonus show, which is, of course, a membership perk, we are going to talk about the truth about what's going on with the border wall. I do want to address the situation going on with the Goya CEO and a lot of the really dumb takes that we're hearing from some people on the right. And then just days after the owner of the Washington Redskins said they would never change their team name, they are expected to change their team name. It may even have been announced by the time you hear this. So all of those stories and more on today's bonus show. Get instant access at davidpakman.com/membership. And for the latest updates from the Urban Garden, simply follow me on Instagram at david.pakman. I'll see you on the bonus show or otherwise tomorrow.